The crowd was already laughing, and she had not even sung a single note. Backstage, crew exchanged smirks. A contestant whispered, "This will be awkward." One of the judges leaned toward another, barely covering their mic. This should be quick. Because standing center stage was a woman who did not look like the next big thing. No flashy makeup, no dramatic gown, just a worn denim jacket, faded jeans, and a nervous smile that trembled at the corners. She was not supposed to be here. Not really. Her name had not even been on the original list of finalists. She had been signed up as a joke, by coworkers, as a prank. A little fun, they said. She sings in the break room, what's the harm? And now, here she was, under blinding lights, on one of the biggest talent stages in the country, holding a microphone with hands that would not stop shaking. The host gave her a quick nod. She stepped forward, and when she opened her mouth, no one was ready. Her name was Lena Grace, 31 years old, born in a small town where dreams were second to survival. By day, she worked the front desk at a corporate logistics office, signing packages, answering phones, and gently reminding delivery drivers that the loading dock closed at 5. Nothing about her life felt big. She lived in a modest one-bedroom apartment above a laundromat. Her wardrobe was simple, functional. Her voicemail was full of happy belated birthday messages that always arrived a day late. But Lena had something no one really saw or listened to, a voice, not trained, not polished by vocal coaches or perfected in studios, but real. She had sung since childhood. Her earliest memory was of humming lullabies to her baby brother when their parents fought behind closed doors. At 13, she used to record cassette tapes of herself singing over her mom's kitchen radio, pretending she was on stage. Yet every time she shared her voice, people responded the same way. "That was cute. You have a nice voice. Do you ever think of doing karaoke?" But she never heard, "You belong on a stage." No one ever said, "You could be great." So she sang only for herself, in the shower, while washing dishes, and sometimes in the office break room, humming barely above a whisper while waiting for the microwave to beep. Until Dylan, the company's self-proclaimed office clown, overheard her one afternoon. She had been singing an old Sarah McLachlan ballad, eyes closed, lost in the melody. She did not notice Dylan approaching until he burst out laughing. "Whoa, Mariah Carey's in the building." She froze, embarrassed. But Dylan kept teasing, gently at first, then louder when others walked in. Within a day, everyone in the office was joking about Lena's secret career. 2 days later, he submitted her name for an open audition in the city. He told the HR group chat it was for fun. Lena wanted to cancel. She typed out the email 5 times, but something about the way people laughed, as if she couldn't possibly be serious, triggered something deeper, something she had buried for years. Maybe it was anger. Maybe it was hope. Maybe it was the realization that she was tired of being small in every room she walked into. So on the day of the audition, she took the 6:15 a.m. train, wearing her plainest jeans and softest hoodie. She was the 143rd name on the list. No glam squad, no manager, just Lena, and a worn leather notebook filled with lyrics she had written in the margins of her pay stubs. She did not expect to get called back, but she did. She did not expect to make the semifinals, but she did. And now, standing backstage at the nationally televised final, Lena was still the same woman people ignored in office kitchens. The difference? She had stopped ignoring herself. But no one else knew that yet. To them, she was still the underdog, still the funny prank contestant who got lucky, still the girl with the denim jacket who would crack under pressure. They had no idea that every time they doubted her, they were feeding the very fire she was about to unleash. The spotlight warmed her face. The audience, once buzzing with idle chatter, settled into a hush of expectation, but not the good kind. This was the silence people gave when they were waiting for someone to fail, the kind of stillness that sat on the edge of mockery. 1,000 eyes watched her every breath. 1,000,000 more would be watching from home. Lena adjusted the mic stand. Her fingers trembled slightly as she placed them on the cool metal. Her eyes darted to the judges. The first was already writing something down. The second, a pop icon in red lipstick, was scrolling through her phone uninterested. The third gave a tight, polite smile like he was preparing to soften the blow after she sang. And then the music began. It was a soft piano introduction, simple, slow. A song few recognized, one Lena had written herself. She took a breath, closed her eyes, and then she sang. Not loudly, not with force, but with truth. The first note was low, controlled, almost whispered, but there was something in it that stopped time. It was not the kind of voice that shouted, "Look at me." It was the kind that said, "Listen." A hush spread through the auditorium. The judge with the phone slowly looked up. She sang about being overlooked, about living a life full of small goodbyes and silent sacrifices. She sang about folding your dreams into the corners of your day job, about love you give that is never returned, about walking into rooms and feeling like a shadow. But most of all, she sang about rising. Rising not like a star, but like a woman who refuses to stay invisible. Her voice climbed, verse by verse, soft, trembling, giving way to steady strength. By the time she reached the chorus, the audience was leaning forward in their seats. The pop icon judge blinked rapidly, mascara just beginning to smudge beneath her lashes. The second judge had put his pen down entirely, and the third? He whispered, not into the mic, but to himself, "Where has she been hiding?" As the second verse unfolded, Lena's face changed. She was no longer nervous. She was no longer small. She stood tall, shoulders back, pouring out decades of unspoken feelings, and every word resonated like it had been written for someone in the crowd who never thought they would be seen. And the room listened. No coughs, no shifting in chairs, just raw attention.
People forgot the cameras. The producers forgot to cut to crowd shots. Even the backstage techs stopped adjusting settings, transfixed by a woman they had dismissed only moments ago.
Then came the bridge.
Lena's voice soared, not in volume, but in meaning.
You laughed when I walked in alone, but watch how I leave as a fire of my own.
That lyric, it cracked something open. You could hear muffled sniffles in the front rows. Someone in the second row covered their mouth in surprise. The lights dimmed around her as the final chorus arrived. One note held longer than expected, perfectly controlled but rich with vulnerability. It was not theatrical. It was not polished by fame. It was real. When the song ended, there was a moment of pure silence. Not the awkward, the sacred, the kind that hangs between the last note. Then came the applause. Not explosive, but building, like a wave gaining strength. From the back rows first, then rising, clapping. Lena lowered the mic. Her eyes shimmered, but no tears. She had already cried those. Now, sitting in the moment she never thought she would. Not for approval. Turned slightly to. They looked different. Not smug, not dismissed. They looked humbled. And that. The applause had faded, but the emotions. Lena stood quietly, hands clasped in front of her. She was not shaken. She did not have to be loud to be powerful. She had just proved. The judges looked at her. The pop icon, her voice unexpected emotion. Lena, I don't know who, because what you that was one. The second judge sat forward, sometime mild.
I don't know how, but you reached a part of me that I forgot existed. Lena tried to smile, but her throat was tight with emotion. And just like that, they all stood. A full standing ovation from the panel. Backstage, the crew erupted. Even the sarcastic tech director who usually scoffed at emotional acts had gone quiet. But while the cameras zoomed in, Lena's mind was somewhere else. She was back in her childhood bedroom, age 15, taping blankets over the walls to muffle her singing voice, terrified that her father would yell again if he heard her wasting time. She remembered sitting at her tiny desk, writing lyrics in the corners of her homework. She remembered skipping lunch to buy second-hand headphones so she could study the voices she admired. Not to copy, but to learn what truth felt like in a melody. She remembered being told by her high school music teacher, "You don't have the range to be solo. Maybe join the choir, stay in the back." She did, and that teacher never looked her in the eye again. She remembered college auditions, how her hands trembled, how her throat tightened. How they told her no again and again. You're too quiet. You're too plain. You're not what we're looking for. So she stopped auditioning. She stopped trying. She got a receptionist job, started taking care of her mom when her health declined, got used to canceling plans, got used to disappearing into the background. Until the prank. The fake sign-up. The jokes in the office. The whispers. Oh, she'll back out. She won't show up. Wait till they hear her. This'll be good. They thought they had signed her up to embarrass her. But really, they had given her the door she had been too scared to knock on herself. And now, standing on one of the biggest stages in the country, her name trending, her voice echoing in 100 recording rooms, Lena finally understood something. She had not been small. The world had just been loud, too loud to notice the quiet brilliance in people like her. Too distracted by flash and fame to notice the soul in a simple melody. Too busy laughing to ever expect that she would be the one to bring them to tears. As she stepped off the stage, a producer rushed toward her. "You're going viral," he said, eyes wide. "Every platform. Everyone's talking about you." Lena blinked. She had not even looked at her phone. "I don't know what happens next," the producer added. "But you just changed this show." Lena smiled, not for the cameras, but for the girl inside her who had once been told to keep quiet. For the young woman who once thought her dreams expired when she turned 30. She had just begun to realize. Her voice wasn't just hers anymore. It belonged to every person who had been laughed at, overlooked, or underestimated. And she was not going to stop now. By the time Lena returned home that night, her name had already climbed to the top of the trending charts in 3 countries. Clips of her performance, raw, unedited, and emotional, flooded TikTok and YouTube. A stitched video of the judges' stunned reactions had already racked up over 15 million views. Hashtag Lena Grace, hashtag The Voice We Didn't See, and hashtag Quiet Power were everywhere. But with the spotlight came the shadows. The next morning her inbox was flooded. Some were genuine, heartfelt messages from strangers saying her voice gave them hope. A mother from Kentucky wrote, "I played your song for my daughter. She has a stutter and wants to sing. You showed her that being overlooked is not the same as being unworthy." A man from Brazil wrote, "I never cry, but I cried when you sang. Thank you." But others, not so kind. An email from her old high school classmate read, "Funny how the girl we all ignored is suddenly famous. Still can't believe that voice came from you." Another message, anonymous and bitter, said, "Let's see how long this fairy tale lasts. One good song doesn't make you a star." Some former co-workers started posting blurry photos of her on Instagram with captions like, "Knew her before she got famous. She made decent coffee." Even Dylan, the prankster who had originally signed her up, uploaded a smug TikTok explaining how he discovered Lena. "I knew she had something in her. I mean, we used to joke around, but I always believed deep down she'd go far." He forgot to mention that he once called her tone-deaf Mariah, and then came the news articles. Some uplifting. The audition no one saw coming. Lena Grace's voice shakes the industry. Why Lena's honesty might be what music has been missing. Some skeptical. Is Lena Grace a one-hit wonder? From receptionist to icon, or just viral hype? Lena tried not to read the comments, but the temptation won. Some praised her voice. Others criticized her appearance. She's amazing, but someone get her a stylist. Great voice, but too plain for pop. Needs work. Industry's gonna eat her alive. The high wore off fast, faster than she had expected. She sat alone at her kitchen table, laptop open, fingers hovering over her phone. She had dozens of interview requests, performance offers, podcast invites. But it felt like the world was waiting to decide if she was worthy, like her worth was up for vote. That night, she received a call she had not expected. A familiar voice, calm, measured. Her husband, Malcolm. Yes, Lena was married, quietly, privately, and without announcement. Malcolm was a quiet billionaire, not flashy, not loud. He ran a global tech firm, but hated social media. He preferred quiet evenings, classical jazz, and handwritten notes. They had met 3 years ago in the most unexpected way. He had laughed. Genuinely. Over the next year, he kept visiting the building, even when he had no meetings scheduled. Eventually, he asked her to dinner, not because she sang, he had not even heard her then, but because of how she listened. When they married, she asked to keep her last name. She also asked him not to tell anyone who he really was, not because she was ashamed, but because she needed to grow into her own story. And he respected that. Now, hearing his voice again made her eyes sting. "I watched it 5 times, Malcolm said softly. "You were brilliant, Lena. And no, I don't mean that like a husband. I mean that like a man who knows talent when he sees it." She exhaled, finally allowing herself to breathe. "They're already tearing it apart," she whispered. "It's barely been 24 hours. "Because they saw something they didn't expect," he replied. "They hate being wrong. And they were very wrong about you." He paused. "Do you want to disappear again?" She shook her head, though he could not see it. "No," she said. "I just want to make music, that's all." "Then do that," he said, "and let me handle the noise." That night, Lena went to sleep not as a viral moment, but as an artist. A woman who had walked through mockery, criticism, and condescension, and had come out holding her truth like a torch. And whether the world clapped or laughed again, this time, she would not be the one shrinking. A week later, the final round of the competition was held in a grand theater in Los Angeles. Velvet curtains, towering chandeliers, an audience packed with music executives, press, influencers, and die-hard fans who had flown in from around the world. Backstage, Lena sat in the green room, alone. Not because she had no team. She had one now. Not because no one wanted to talk to her. Everyone did. But because she needed to remember why she was here. Her fingers gently traced the notepad in her lap, lyrics she had written in her journal during lunch breaks and late nights over the years. Lines scribbled when no one cared, when no one listened. And now? Now the world was listening. A stagehand popped his head in. 3 minutes, Miss Grace." She nodded. She still was not used to being called that. In the hallway, her competitors buzzed with nervous excitement. Some wore designer gowns, some had backup dancers, some had glam squads fixing the angle of every hair strand. And Lena? She wore a simple black dress. Clean lines, no sequins, no theatrics, just her and her voice. As she walked past the others, a few heads turned. A woman in a gold jumpsuit, one who had openly laughed during Lena's first rehearsal weeks ago, now stepped aside to make room for her. No words were spoken, but the silence was filled with something new. Respect. The moment Lena walked on stage, she smiled, but inside a storm of emotion brewed. This time the lights did not blind her. They lit her path. She walked to the center of the stage. The mic stand was lowered perfectly to her height. The sound crew, now admirers, had made sure everything was just right. She gave the band a tiny nod, the kind that said, "I am ready." And then she began. The song was her own, an original she had written in her notebook years ago, about invisibility, about survival, about reclaiming one's name. No chorus designed for radio, no hook engineered to go viral, just a melody that climbed slowly, gracefully, from silence, like dawn breaking after a long, cruel night. And the crowd? They froze. You could hear people crying in the dark. Even the judges, seasoned, polished, jaded, had to look down to hide the emotion in their eyes. Backstage, Malcolm stood in the wings, hands in pockets, no press around him, no camera crew, just him, watching his wife command a world that once refused to see her. He smiled to himself. He had loved her long before this spotlight, but watching the world finally see what he always knew, that was something else entirely. As Lena held the last note, her voice trembling with honest emotion, the lights dimmed and a soft golden hue bathed her silhouette. For a moment, no one moved. Then the room exploded into thunderous applause, not just a standing ovation, but a roar. The judges stood. The crowd stood. Even the security guards clapped. She bowed, just once, and walked off stage, calm, centered, whole. Later that night, she was announced the winner, but it was not the trophy in her hands that changed her life. It was the call she received 2 hours after the show aired. From a global music label. "We do not want to change you," the executive said. "We want to sign you exactly as you are. Write your songs, sing your way. There's a market starving for honesty, and Lena, you are truth." She looked at the phone in disbelief. This time, she did not hesitate. "Yes," she said simply. "I'd be honored." Months later, Lena released her debut album, Quiet Power, and it shattered streaming records. But she never forgot where she came from. In interviews, she told the full story, not the fairy tale, but the real path. "I was laughed at, overlooked, entered into a contest as a joke. And now, I am singing for every person who has been told they are not enough." She used part of her earnings to start a foundation offering free voice lessons to young artists from underfunded schools. And every time someone told her she was too plain for stardom, she smiled and replied, "Good, then let the art speak louder than the glitter." 1 year after her performance went viral, she returned to the same stage, this time as a guest judge. When the girl sang, her voice cracked from nerves, but it was real. When the other judges paused, unsure what to say, Lena leaned forward and smiled. "You have something rare. Do not let the world talk you out of it." Because Lena knew the truth. Not every spotlight is kind, but some lights come from within.